The silence hit first, not the polite, expectant quiet that usually settled over the gallery before Judge Judy walked in.
You are a fool.
This was different. The silence felt like a held breath, a warning, a tightening in the air as if the walls themselves knew something was wrong before anyone spoke it aloud. Every eye in the room drifted toward the plaintiff's table, where a girl so small she barely filled the chair sat stiffly with her shoulders curled inward. Emily Turner, 14. She looked like a child who had accidentally wandered into a world built for adults and already regretted it. Her mother, Sarah, sat beside her, one hand gripping her daughter's knee as though she could shield her from everything. The cameras, the legal jargon. The man staring back at them with a smirk. He didn't even bother to hide. Officer Daniel Price, arms crossed, stance wide, chin high. The arrogance practically radiated off him. Anyone walking in without context might have thought he was the victim, not a man accused of writing a ticket that had spiraled a struggling family into chaos, but the people who had read the case file. They knew why they were here. They knew the storm that was about to break. A sharp click echoed through the courtroom. The door behind the bench opened. Judge Judy entered. She didn't rush. She didn't smile for the cameras. Her steps were steady, but there was a weight in them, a deliberate heaviness. As though she had walked into this room already angry, she reached her bench, set the folder down, but she didn't open it. Instead, she lifted her gaze and looked straight at Officer Price, not a word spoken. Yet the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Her eyes then shifted to Emily, small, trembling, bracing herself, and only then did Judy speak. "State your name." Her voice wasn't harsh, wasn't loud, but carried that unmistakable authority that made lying feel impossible. "Emily Turner," the girl whispered. "And how old are you, Emily?" 14. A flicker, small but unmistakable, crossed Judy's face. Not surprise. Disapproval. Not at the child, at the man who had dragged her here. Judy leaned back, fingers interlaced. "All right, let's get into it." But she didn't open the folder. Not yet. It was as if she wanted to give the adults a chance, one last chance, to explain themselves before she unleashed what she already knew. "Mrs. Turner," she said, turning to the mother, "why are you here today?" Sarah swallowed, voice tight. "Your Honor, my daughter received a parking ticket. She wasn't driving. She wasn't breaking any law. She was just waiting for me like I asked her to." Emily's hands clenched in her lap. "And that ticket," Sarah continued, her voice cracking. "It created more damage than you can imagine." A ripple moved through the audience. Pity, confusion, disbelief. A child, a ticket, and consequences that clearly ran deeper than a simple fine. Judge Judy finally exhaled, sharp and controlled. "A ticket issued to a 14-year-old, she repeated, her eyes sliding back to Price like a blade. "Let's be absolutely clear before we proceed." She looked at Emily again. "Were you in the driver's seat?" "No, Your Honor," Emily replied quickly. "Passenger seat. The car was off, and you were alone?" "Yes." "And your mother told you to stay put?" "Yes." 4 questions. 4 answers. All simple. All damning. Judy didn't hide her reaction now. She leaned forward, elbows on the bench, but she still didn't open the file, because she didn't need to. "Not yet. Mrs. Turner," she said quietly, "how did we get from a child sitting in a parked car to being here, in this courtroom?" Sarah's eyes glistened. "Because the late fees, the penalties, the rejection letters, they kept piling up. I tried to contest it. I sent explanations. I sent photos. No one listened. And I couldn't afford to pay it off in time." Emily lowered her head, guilt pooling in her eyes like she'd done something terrible instead of simply obeying her mother. "Emily thought it was her fault," Sarah whispered. "She still does." Judy's jaw tightened. Then, finally, she opened the folder. The thick stack of documents inside wasn't neat. It was layered with colored tabs, highlights, handwritten notes, the kind of markings that told you someone had gone through every line with a scalpel instead of a pen. "This case," Judy murmured, almost to herself, "is not about a ticket. It's about judgment. Her gaze snapped back to Price. And I'm going to find out exactly why your judgment failed. The officer shifted in his chair, the tiny, involuntary movement of a man who just realized the ground beneath him was not solid. The audience held their breath. Then Judy's voice dropped, calm and lethal. Officer Price, stand by. I'll be addressing you shortly. Emily flinched up. Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand, and the room, already silent, somehow grew even quieter, because what nobody realized yet was this. The ticket Emily received was only the beginning. To understand why this case had dragged a courtroom into a vacuum of tension, you had to rewind. Not to the courtroom, not to the citation, but to the night everything went wrong. The night that had looked ordinary, harmless, forgettable. The night Sarah Turner made a choice every mother makes. Stay in the car. I'll be right back. She didn't know that decision, the simplest, safest one she could make, would collide with the wrong officer at the wrong time. And Emily, a girl who couldn't legally drive, couldn't legally be responsible, couldn't legally say no to an adult officer, would become the target of a mistake that should never have existed. The courtroom waited. Judy waited. And then, in a voice that cut through the air like truth itself, she said, "We're going to start from the beginning." Everything, absolutely everything, was about to unravel. Asterisk. The night it happened wasn't dramatic. There was no storm, no emergency, no sense of danger creeping in from the edges of the world. It was just another Tuesday, the kind of day that blurs into every other day when life is a cycle of work, bills, exhaustion, repeat. Sarah Turner had already worked a double shift at the diner. Her hands still smelled faintly of dish soap and burnt coffee. Her feet ached so badly she could feel her pulse in them. She just wanted to go home, take a shower, help Emily with homework, and collapse into bed. But life, especially for people barely staying afloat, never seemed to allow simple endings. "Mom," Emily said quietly from the passenger seat as they pulled into the grocery store lot. "Can we just go home, please?" Sarah looked over and saw it, the fatigue in her daughter's eyes, the dark circles, the way she kept rubbing her forehead, like she'd been thinking too hard all day, just trying to keep up. "I know, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, brushing Emily's hair behind her ear. "But we need milk for tomorrow." And I ran out of headache medicine again. They both knew what that meant. If she didn't take something tonight, she might wake up dizzy and nauseous. And calling in sick wasn't an option, not when every dollar mattered. The parking lot was a mess that night. A delivery truck blocked half the nearest spaces. Another truck sat sideways, flashing hazard lights as employees unloaded crates. Every open spot seemed 3 aisles away. Sarah circled once, then twice. Emily shivered just watching people hurry in and out of the store through the cold. November always felt harsher when you were tired. Finally, Sarah sighed. "Okay, I'll run in alone. You stay inside the car. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone. I'll be fast." Emily nodded. This was normal. Comforting, even they'd done it 100 times. She always felt safer in the car, away from the crowded aisles and fluorescent lights. Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand before stepping out. 7 minutes. She would only be gone 7 minutes, a mother's most trusted promise, inside the store. Sarah moved quickly, grabbing milk and medicine, weaving through people like someone racing a countdown she couldn't afford to lose. She didn't even glance at the seasonal aisle she used to love walking through with Emily. There was no time for that anymore. She paid, hurried toward the exit, and breathed into her hands for warmth as she stepped back into the frigid night air. But when she approached the car, her breath caught. A uniformed parking officer was standing beside it. Her heart lurched, that primal, parental jolt of fear. She rushed forward. "I'm sorry." "I'm right here. I was only inside for a few minutes." The officer didn't look up. He kept writing. As if nothing she said mattered. Sarah's voice trembled. "My daughter's inside the car. She's just a child." He turned his head slightly, not enough to show interest, just enough to display irritation. "She refused to move the vehicle," he said flatly. Sarah froze. "Move the vehicle? She's 14. She wasn't driving. She was in the driver's seat, he snapped. No, she wasn't, Mom. He interrupted, raising a hand. The vehicle was in a no-standing zone. Doesn't matter who's inside. But she's a child. Sarah cried. You frightened her. She didn't know what to do. Officer Price ripped the ticket off his pad and slapped it onto the windshield without another word. And just like that, he walked away. No explanation. No common sense. No decent human judgment. Asterisk. Sarah's hands shook as she unlocked the door. Emily was pale, wide-eyed, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know what to do, she whispered. He knocked so hard. He told me to move the car. I didn't know if I was allowed. I was scared, Mom. Sarah hugged her, guilt strangling her like a rope. It's okay. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. But the truth was already sinking in, deep, painful, unavoidable. Something terrible had just happened. Asterisk. The next few weeks felt like drowning. Sarah contested the ticket. Sent letters. Attached photos. Explained Emily's age. Sent proof she wasn't driving. Begged for reconsideration. Every reply was the same. Request denied. Fees applied. Balance due increasing. $150, then $190, then $245, then $300 after a bank overdraft fee hit. Because Sarah misjudged the timing, every charge felt like another weight, dragging the family down. Emily saw it all. Every sigh, every late-night calculation, every tear Sarah tried to hide, and Emily started blaming herself. I mess everything up, she whispered one night, curled under her blanket. You worked so hard, and then I messed everything up. Sarah gathered her daughter into her arms. Baby, no, you did exactly what I asked you to. This wasn't your fault. But Emily didn't believe that. How could she? She had watched her mom cry quietly over a piece of paper she didn't understand, and something inside. Sarah snapped, not in anger, but in resolve. She wouldn't let her daughter carry this. Not for one more day. So she sent everything. The entire file to Judge Judy's team. She expected nothing, but then a phone call. A voice saying, Judge Judy wants this case. Sarah sat on the floor when she heard it, shaking, overwhelmed with something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. She didn't know, couldn't have known, that the file on Judge Judy's bench the day of the hearing was not the same simple packet she had mailed in. Judy's researchers had gone digging deep, and what they uncovered was the reason Judy walked into the courtroom looking like she'd already won the fight, because it wasn't just a ticket. It was a pattern, a dangerous one, a pattern that led straight back to Officer Daniel Price, and that was where the real storm began. Asterisk. The courtroom door clicked shut behind Emily as she returned to her seat beside her mother. She kept her hands tightly clasped together, her breathing shallow. It felt like the air itself had turned heavy. Judge Judy quietly adjusted her glasses, her expression unreadable. Officer Price strode back to the witness stand with the confidence of a man who believed he controlled the outcome. But Judy's eyes followed him like a hawk tracking prey. She waited until he sat before she spoke. Officer Price, she said, voice calm but sharp. Before we continue, I want to understand your timeline. Price nodded, leaning forward as if you were the smartest man in the room. Of course, Your Honor. Judy folded her hands. You said you first noticed this missing file 2 weeks ago? Yes, ma'am. And you claim Internal Affairs is responsible for its disappearance? Exactly, he said. They've been trying to sabotage me because I've been very vocal about corruption. A smirk crept across his face. The gallery behind him exchanged uneasy glances. Judy raised her chin slightly. Mr. Price, are you implying that Internal Affairs, whose job is to uncover corruption, is corrupt? Price didn't even hesitate. I'm saying it's possible, Your Honor. Judy let out a short, humorless laugh. Oh, I love that. I really do. Blame the people investigating you? Classic. Sarah looked toward the bailiff, whispering, Is he serious? He's digging his own grave, the bailiff whispered back. Asterisk. Judy turned toward Sarah. Mrs. Miller, earlier, You mentioned that your daughter witnessed Officer Price with a stack of speeding tickets at a gas station. Is that correct? Sarah nodded. Yes, she told me she saw him feeding torn papers into a shredder bin behind the station. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Emily's voice trembled as she added, he wasn't wearing his uniform. He had regular clothes. And he looked around a lot, like he didn't want anyone to see him. Officer Price stiffened. That's ridiculous, he snapped. Why would I shred anything outside? I have a department shredder. That makes no sense. Judy held up a hand sharply. Quiet, I wasn't talking to you. Price bit down on his tongue, jaw pulsing with anger. Judy turned back to Emily. Sweetheart, did you tell anyone else what you saw? Emily nodded. Yes. I told Internal Affairs when they called us. Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand, both in pride and fear. Price burst out, of course she told you. They're manipulating everyone. Judy turned to him so slowly it made the whole room freeze. Officer Price, you interrupt me one more time and you won't just lose your job. You'll lose your freedom. Do you understand me? The officer's face drained of color. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, thinking quietly, intensely. Then she snapped her fingers toward the bailiff. Bring in Mr. Daniels. Everyone turned. A middle-aged man in a gray shirt and work boots entered nervously. He looked like a man who never expected to find himself in a courtroom. Price's eyes went wide. What is he doing here? Judy shot him a glare. What did I just tell you about interrupting? Price fell silent. The man approached the stand, hands trembling. Judy softened her tone. State your name. Calvin Daniels, Your Honor, and your occupation? I work maintenance at the Ridgewood gas station. I handle the trash and recycling. Judy lifted an eyebrow. Mr. Daniels, did anyone from Internal Affairs contact you recently? He nodded. Yes, ma'am. They asked if I've seen anything unusual behind the station. And what did you tell them? Daniels wiped his hands on his jeans. A few times last month, I saw Officer Price dump shredded papers in our bin behind the station. The room erupted. Price shot to his feet. He's lying. I'll sit down. Judy thundered. He sat, shaking with rage. Judy continued. Mr. Daniels, how do you know they were tickets? Daniels swallowed. One of the bags ripped open when it hit the ground. I saw the pink slips. Speeding tickets. Lots of them. Judy nodded, her face stone cold. And did you recognize who dumped them? Daniels hesitated, then pointed. Yes, ma'am. It was him. Officer Price. Price looked ready to explode. His arrogance was gone, replaced by fear. Judge Judy turned slowly toward Price. Officer Price. I'm going to give you one opportunity. One, to tell me the truth. Price shook his head defensively. I don't know what this man is talking about. Judy slammed her hand on the bench. Stop, I'm done with your excuses. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Emily flinched, clutching her mother. Judy's expression sharpened to a razor's edge. You targeted a minor to cover your tracks. You issued false tickets. You shredded evidence. And now you're lying under oath. Price's lips trembled. I wasn't like that. Oh, don't insult me. I've been on this bench longer than you've been shaving. The gallery laughed, but Judy's face remained deadly serious. You abused your badge, and you picked the wrong courtroom to try it. Price's shoulders sank. His breathing turned shaky. The weight of everyone's eyes crushed him. Finally, he whispered, They told me to meet quota. Judy leaned forward. Who? He shook his head. I can't say. You will, Judy said coldly. I'll lose my pension, he muttered. Judy stared him down. Sir, if you don't tell me, you're going to lose your freedom. Price shut his eyes tightly, defeated. I was told by Sergeant Morley to write extra tickets. Ones that wouldn't be contested. They wanted the numbers high. Sarah gasped. Emily covered her mouth. Judy nodded slowly, absorbing the admission. And the shredding? Price's voice cracked. They were old tickets. Ones I shouldn't have written. I panicked. Judy straightened. You should panic. Because you're looking at felony evidence tampering. Asterisk. Judge Judy turned toward Emily, her voice softened. Sweet girl, you didn't just tell the truth. You stood up to a grown man abusing his authority. That's courage most adults don't have. Emily blinked back tears. Judy turned back to Price, her tone turning icy. Officer Price, I'm forwarding this case to Internal Affairs and the District Attorney's Office immediately. Price's entire body sagged. You're suspended from duty, effective now, she continued. Bailiff, take his badge. The bailiff walked over. Price tried to protest, but the words died as the badge was pulled from his chest. The courtroom watched in stunned silence. Judy looked at him one last time. You should have been protecting kids like her, not using them. Asterisk. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Officer Price, once arrogant, smug, and utterly sure of his own power, now stood small and speechless, stripped of his badge and authority. Emily watched with wide, unblinking eyes, trying to understand how a man in uniform could crumble so fast. Judge Judy lifted her paperwork and tapped the edge on the bench, bringing the room back to life. Let's finish what we started, she said, her tone firm but steady. Sarah wrapped her arm around her daughter. It's almost over, sweetheart, she whispered, but Emily wasn't afraid anymore. For the first time in weeks, she looked brave. Asterisk. Judy turned back to Officer Price. Mr. Price, sit down. He hesitated before lowering himself into the witness chair, trembling. Judy continued. You've admitted that you were instructed by Sergeant Morley to write false or unnecessary citations in order to meet quota. You've admitted to shredding tickets outside the department. You've lied under oath about the whereabouts of the Miller file. Price whispered, yes, Your Honor. And you targeted a child, Judy added, her voice rising sharply. A minor. Because you thought she couldn't fight back. Emily shrank into her seat. Sarah's eyes burned with quiet anger. Price looked down, shame forming a shadow across his face. Asterisk. Judge Judy turned to the gallery. This is what happens, she said loudly, when people in positions of authority forget why they were given authority in the first place. Several heads nodded. A few people murmured in agreement. Judy pointed her finger at Price. You don't get to wave a badge and expect the world to bow. A badge doesn't make you powerful, it makes you responsible. And you abuse that responsibility. Price's throat tightened. Sarah whispered to the bailiff, she's incredible. The bailiff chuckled softly. You have no idea. Judge Judy turned to Emily, and the entire courtroom softened. Emily, stand up for a moment. Emily stood slowly, nervous. Judge Judy's voice became gentle, almost grandmotherly. You did exactly what a good citizen is supposed to do. You paid attention. You told the truth. And you weren't afraid to admit you were scared. Emily bit her lip. I thought nobody would believe me. Oh, sweetheart, Judy said, shaking her head. The truth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes it just needs courage. Emily's eyes shimmered. Thank you, Your Honor. Judy smiled, but only for a moment. Then the seal returned. Asterisk. Officer Price, Judy said, this court cannot sentence you, but I can refer you for criminal charges. And that is exactly what I'm doing. Price closed his eyes, defeated. Judy spoke clearly, so the entire courtroom and anyone who would ever watch this case would hear. You are being referred to the District Attorney's Office for the following potential charges: evidence tampering, filing false reports, abuse of power, harassment of a minor, perjury. Gasps erupted across the room. Price whispered, please, Your Honor, I have a family. Judy didn't flinch. So does she replied, pointing to Emily, and you terrified them. Price had no argument left. Only silence. Asterisk. Bailiff, Judy commanded. Escort Mr. Price out of my courtroom and into the custody of Internal Affairs. The bailiff stepped behind the officer. Hands behind your back. Price stiffened. Wait, I thought I wasn't being arrested. You're being detained? Judy clarified sharply. What happens next depends on the investigators. You no longer get to control the situation. The bailiff snapped cuffs onto Price's wrists. The courtroom held its breath. As Price was led toward the back door. He paused, not by choice, but by the weight of what he'd lost. He turned once. His eyes meeting Emily's, she didn't look scared anymore. She looked strong, asterisk. The moment the door closed behind Price, Sarah pulled Emily into her arms, tears falling freely. "You're safe now, baby," she whispered. "It's over." Emily didn't cry. Instead, she let out a breath she'd been holding for weeks. "It wasn't my fault," she said softly. "No, sweetheart," Sarah replied. "It never was." Judge Judy watched them quietly, her expression softening. "Mrs. Miller," she said, drawing their attention. "You and your daughter handled this with more dignity than many adults I've seen." Sarah wiped her tears. "Thank you, Your Honor." "Make sure she remembers this moment," Judy added. "Not because of what happened to her, but because she stood up for herself." Judy shuffled her papers. "But she wasn't finished. This case," she said, looking around the room, "is a reminder that nobody, not even a police officer, is above the law." The gallery nodded, double quotes, "And if any department thinks it can bully children or shred justice," she paused dramatically, "they can come stand in front of me next." A ripple of laughter broke the tension. Judy raised her gavel. "This court is adjourned." Bang! The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder, but this time, it didn't scare Emily. It set her free. Asterisk Sarah, and Emily exited the courthouse into the bright afternoon light. Cameras flashed. Reporters yelled questions. But Emily just held her mother's hand and walked forward. She wasn't just a scared girl anymore. She was the girl who stood up to a corrupt officer. And one asterisk.